Hey guys, tonight we're going to do something both ambitious and extremely cozy. We're going to try and make it through a 13th century winter night without dying of cold, rats, or boredom. Picture this. Outside, the wind howls like a choir of angry ghosts. Inside, your house is made of wood, mud, and maybe a little hope. There's no insulation, no glass windows, and the fire in the middle of the room is trying its best, but it's mostly just coughing smoke in your face. The air smells like damp wool, wood smoke, and maybe something weirdly cabbage adjacent that's been boiling for 8 hours. You're not sick yet. That's great. You probably will be soon. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're still awake in the comments, drop your location and what time you're listening. I'd love to know who's traveling back to the 1200s with me tonight. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You arrive just as dusk rolls in. The air is sharp and biting, and your breath fogs out like smoke from a dragon's nostrils. The road behind you is nothing but muddy ruts and the occasional pile of horse-related mystery. Up ahead, your new home squats low to the ground, part cottage, part barn, part ongoing structural emergency. The wooden door creaks open with a reluctant groan. Inside, the single-room dwelling is dim, lit only by the last threads of twilight, and a fire that's technically alive, but mostly sulking. The hearth is in the middle of the room, a soot-blackened pit with 3 rocks and 1 iron pot that's seen better centuries. There's a low table with 2 wobbly legs, some stools that probably double as headrests, and what looks like a bed. You really hope that's a bed. The walls are made of wattle and daub, basically mud, straw, and wooden sticks mashed together by someone with either a deep understanding of physics or none at all. Cold wind slithers through every gap, turning your indoors into something that still feels a lot like outdoors, but slightly darker. You breathe through your nose and instantly regret it. The air smells like old wood smoke, sheep, turnips, and maybe a ghost that gave up halfway through haunting. Your host for the night is a widow named Maud. She doesn't say much, but she gives you a nod and hands you a heavy woolen smock that may have once been white. In another life, she motions to a pile of straw in the corner, covered with a blanket that crunches when you touch it. Crunchy bedding, a promising sign. As you settle in, Maud places a wooden bucket near your head for night water. She mutters, "You do not ask questions. This is it, your safe haven for the night." The temperature is dropping. You can feel it in your fingers, already stiff, and in your toes, which have begun negotiating their terms for staying attached to your body. Your breath fogs the air in short puffs. Maud doesn't seem to notice the cold at all. She sits by the hearth, adjusting the firewood and throwing on something that hisses as it burns. Likely damp moss, classic. Historians still argue whether peasants like Maud actually suffered more from cold than nobles in their massive stone keeps. After all, castles were impossible to heat and draftier than a newsletter campaign. At least here, the walls are low and the hearth is central. Then again, your bed is made of straw, and there are insects in it who now have squatters' rights. As you watch the fire flicker, you hear the subtle movements of the house around you. A mouse skitters behind the table. Something shifts in the rafters. Probably a cat, but possibly a minor deity. You shift beneath your blanket, trying to find the least lumpy spot. This is survival, not dramatic. Dragon-fighting survival. Just the long, slow, quiet kind. The kind that creeps through 1,000 cold nights with no heroic climax. Just the ongoing hope that nothing collapses, freezes, or bites you in your sleep. A mainstream fact for your mental library. The average life expectancy in the 13th century was around 30 to 40 years, but that was heavily skewed by infant mortality. If you survived childhood, you could live longer if you didn't freeze, starve, or get church banned for sneezing during Vespers. The fire sputters. Maud adds a log and pokes it with something that might be a sword or just a very dedicated stick. She offers you a smile. Tomorrow's washing day, she says. You wonder what that means in a world where water is frozen and soap is made from ashes and animal fat. She stretches out on her own straw mattress near the hearth, wrapping herself in what looks like 6 layers of rags and dignity. You're impressed. Outside, the wind has picked up. It whispers around the door frame like it's looking for a weak point. The thatched roof rattles. You're suddenly aware of how thin the walls are. There's no glass in the window, just a wooden shutter, closed with a peg. You hope it holds. You roll over, tucking the itchy blanket tighter around you. The straw crackles beneath your weight. Somewhere deep in the pile, a flea contemplates biting you, but decides it's too cold. A win. Your eyelids get heavy. The fire crackles. The wind hums. And for now, you're alive. You wake with a start, though. Wake might be too generous. It's more like you stop shivering long enough to notice you were never really asleep. The fire is low, glowing like a tired eye, and your left foot has decided to go completely rogue and turn numb. Classic betrayal. Maud is already up. She's stirring something thick and gray in the pot over the fire. Either porridge or medieval concrete. You're not sure. She hands you a wooden bowl, which she calls gruel. You don't ask what's in it. You eat it anyway. Your breath figures in the cold air with each bite. The gruel tastes like boiled patience. It's not awful. It's just aggressively unambitious. You notice a faint crunch near the bottom and choose to believe it's barley. Maud points toward the woods behind the house. Firewood, she says, like it's a casual suggestion. It's not. Welcome to your first challenge. Keeping warm means keeping that fire going. And that means venturing outside. The forest is damp and silent. Snow hasn't fallen yet, but the frost crunches underfoot. Your fingers, wrapped in wool scraps, feel useless as you gather small branches and twigs, larger logs. Forget it. You drag what you can. Like a very determined squirrel, you return, arms aching, face flushed. Maud nods in approval. High praise, really. The fire perks up, crackling its approval too. You take a moment to thaw your hands, which have now turned the color of old radishes. Historians still argue whether medieval peasants spent most of their winters working or simply surviving. Some believe there was more rest during colder months due to the seasonal nature of farm work. Others point out that surviving winter hauling wood, mending roofs, feeding animals was a full-time job in itself. You hang your wet gloves near the hearth, and they begin steaming gently. You do not remove your boots, because once they're off, they may never go back on. Here's your mainstream fact of the section. Medieval fires didn't have chimneys until the later Middle Ages. Smoke just drifted upward and out through holes in the roof or vents near the ceiling. This explains why everything smells like soot and why your lungs are getting an unsolicited cleanse. The walls of the cottage feel slightly less menacing now that the fire's back to life. But there's no illusion here. Comfort is a moving target, and you're chasing it with a wooden spoon. You help Maud move some hay bales to plug a drafty corner. It barely helps. Still, you tell yourself the effort counts. There's a sense of calm now. Maybe it's the heat, or the fact that you didn't collapse in the woods. Either way, you feel oddly proud. You curl up again that evening with your crunchy blanket and your sense of earned exhaustion. Outside, the wind begins to carry snow. Inside, you share a lopsided smile with Maud, who offers you a half turnip, luxury. And as the firelight dances on the walls, you close your eyes just for a moment. Sleep finds you, slowly, grudgingly. It's less like falling asleep and more like losing consciousness while bracing against cold. But morning, as always, comes with its own set of instructions. Today, you're introduced to another essential medieval survival trick: layering. Your current outfit consists of linen, wool, and more wool. Today, you add a third tunic. It smells like turnips and despair, but warmth has no pride. Outside, the snow has truly arrived. It's not the magical, cinematic kind. It's the clingy, heavy kind that turns everything into a slush-covered hazard. You follow Maud to the livestock pen behind the cottage. Feeding animals in this weather, that's not optional. 2 goats, 3 chickens, and a pig named Oswald rely on you now. Oswald is grumpy. His ears are cold. You understand him. While breaking ice on the goat's water trough, your fingers go numb again, but the rhythm of the work is oddly calming. Hauling hay, scattering feed, muttering apologies to chickens you accidentally step on. Mainstream fact here: animals were often kept indoors with families during the harshest winters. It was warmer, but also meant your sleeping quarters had a smell? A powerful, unrelenting smell, the kind that seeps into your dreams. Maud, being practical, has installed a small wooden barrier to keep Oswald from climbing into bed. You both agree this is wise. As the day stretches, you mend a torn mitten with something approximating thread and something vaguely like a needle. You discover you're bad at sewing. You also discover you will be cold until you get better at it. Historians still debate whether medieval peasants had dedicated rest days in winter. The church mandated feast days and holidays, sure, but actual rest, that depended on your social rank, your landlord's mood, and how well your goats behaved. At dusk, the sky turns violet gray, and Maud brews something she claims is medicinal. You drink it. You regret drinking it. You sleep anyway. You awaken with an ache in your back, and the unsettling realization that your feet feel suspiciously warm. Either you've developed frostbite, or Oswald has finally crossed the barrier. A quick glance confirms it's just the fire. You fell asleep closer than usual. You count that as a win. Today's agenda includes defending your roof, not from wolves or brigands, though that would be oddly glamorous in comparison, but from snow, lots of it, wet, heavy snow that threatens to crush your thatched roof like a soggy biscuit. Climbing onto the roof is not elegant. You almost slip on your way up. The ladder creaks like it knows secrets. But once you're there, you start the awkward process of sweeping snow off with a makeshift broom. You are, for all intents and purposes, a human weatherproofing tool. Below, Maud supervises. She occasionally yells advice, most of which sounds like, "Don't fall." Here's your mainstream historical note. Thatched roofs, while excellent insulators, were also fire hazards. They were notorious for harboring rodents and letting in water during freeze-thaw cycles. Maintenance was constant and dangerous, like you're discovering as you scrape the snow off one end. A mound shifts and dumps itself directly into your hood. You nearly curse, nearly quirky tidbit time. Some medieval homes were so small that people would intentionally leave their homes for communal spaces just to avoid going stir-crazy. One documented English village had a shared warming hut where folks would gather for warmth and gossip, mostly gossip. You clamber back down, red-faced, soaked, but victorious. No roof collapse today. Maud hands you a small chunk of cheese as a reward. You pretend it's a trophy. Historians still argue whether peasants viewed winter as a torment or an annual rhythm they simply accepted. You suspect it's both. Misery. Your learning can become weirdly routine. Dinner is boiled. Root vegetables and something that might have once been meat. You sleep well, but you dream of warm baths and central heating. Things that feel more mythical than dragons. By now, you've stopped asking when winter will end. It simply is. Like gravity, or Maud's habit of mumbling at the fire, you wake to the creaking of beams above your head. Just the frost stretching the timbers, or possibly the ghost of someone who didn't make it through last winter. Either way, you decide not to investigate. This morning, you're handed a task more subtle, but just as vital: checking the food stores. In the small corner of the cottage that functions as a pantry, a series of clay jars, woven baskets, and wooden boxes hold your culinary future. Mainstream historical fact: medieval peasants didn't have fridges, obviously, but they were surprisingly adept at food preservation, salting, drying, fermenting. If it stank, but didn't kill you, it was probably edible. Your supplies include dried peas, smoked fish, and a turnip that seems to be growing mold in the shape of a tiny bishop's hat. You inventory the pantry by candlelight, mentally calculating how many meals can be eked out before scurvy sets in. The dried apples are running low. Maud sighs. "Knew we should have dried more in summer," she mutters. You nod like you were totally part of that conversation. In July, quirky fact: some rural households used fermented grain porridge as a meal and a mild antiseptic. You've tasted it. You question the antiseptic part. And the meal part? There's a large clay pot tucked behind the firewood, fermenting cabbage, Maud says. It burps occasionally. You nod and back away. Historians still debate whether peasant households shared resources communally during food scarcity or hoarded them jealously. You suspect the truth depends on the century, the village, and the personality of the pig. That afternoon, Maud teaches you the art of stretching bread dough with crushed beans. It's not theft, she explains. It's resilience. The result tastes like regret, but fills your belly. At night, you lie in bed, listening to wind and your own stomach gurgling. Sleep is slower to come tonight, but when it does, it's deep, like a cellar. No one visits anymore. Sleep is a peculiar thing in the 13th century. You've stopped trying to coax it with logic. Instead, you let it arrive like a stray cat, indifferent, unpredictable, sometimes curled against your spine at 3 Besa, while the wind howls outside and Oswald snores like a broken bellows. This morning, you're introduced to the concept of a second sleep. Mainstream historical fact: in medieval Europe, sleep often came in 2 chunks. People would drift off early in the evening, wake up for an hour or 2, around midnight, maybe tend the fire, pray, snack, or whisper secrets, and then fall back into a second round of slumber. You wake during this between sleep moment and decide to poke the fire. It greets you with a hiss and a tiny puff of smoke. Maud is also awake. She offers you a mug of something warm and vaguely herbal. It tastes like boiled moss and hope. Outside, snowflakes tap the window like bored ghosts. The night is long, and the silence feels like velvet stretched across the rafters. By morning, the stillness lifts slightly. It's chore day again. You're on ash duty, scraping out the hearth, sifting through the gray remains of last week's warmth. Quirky tidbit: ashes weren't just waste. They were useful. Mixed with fat, they became soap. used on icy paths. They offered traction, sprinkled in latrines. They helped with smell. You're now extremely familiar with all three applications. The ashes coat your hands, get into your nose, somehow end up in your teeth. You begin to suspect that cleanliness is a luxury best enjoyed in another century. Midday brings visitors. Neighbors from the next cottage. They bring news. One of their chickens froze to the perch overnight, stiff as a knight's codpiece. The neighbor mutters, deadpan. You suppress a giggle. Historians still argue whether rural communities leaned toward mutual aid in times of hardship, or if survival bred suspicion. Today, it's a gift of onion bulbs and a shared joke about frozen poultry. That feels like hope. That night, you try sleeping in 2 parts again. This time, it works. You wake briefly, then drift back down, like sinking into layers of wool and silence. You dreamt of summer, of sun-warmed dirt underfoot, and apples that weren't shriveled like old monks. But when you wake, it's still winter, and your toes are somewhere between cold and non-existent. You shuffle to the hearth, now just warm embers, and stoke it back to life, with the kind of reverence most people reserve for saints. Breakfast is a porridge so thick it defies gravity. Maud calls it stick to your soul stew. You try not to ask what went into it. Today's survival task is deceptively simple: staying warm, not moving firewood or milking a reluctant goat, just avoiding hypothermia. Mainstream historical fact. In the 13th century, heating was hyperlocal. Central heating didn't exist, obviously, and most cottages relied on a single hearth. That meant everyone orbited the fire like moths with sore backs and low standards. You learn to layer: linen shirt, wool tunic, outer cloak. You wrap your feet in rags and wear a hood indoors. At one point, you're wearing so many layers. You feel like a turnip in a wool salad, but you're warmer, so fashion loses. Quirky tidbit: some folks warmed their beds with heated stones or iron bed warmers. Maud has a different system. She sends the cat in first. It's surprisingly effective. The cat, named Pickles, is both offended and resigned. To pass the time, Maud teaches you how to make hand-stuffed straw cushions. The straw crackles and pokes, but it's better than sitting on bare planks. You're slowly transforming into a 13th century couch potato, minus the couch. The potato. Historians still debate whether peasants slept alone, with family, or communally, with neighbors during especially cold spells. Here, it's just you, Maud, Oswald, and Pickles. It's cozy, sort of. As night falls, Maud drapes another blanket over your shoulders and says, it's not just about staying alive. It's about not freezing while you do it. You nod, understanding her now in a language that requires no translation. The wind outside is fierce tonight, but inside, under layers of wool, ash, and cat hair, you drift off, warm and weirdly content. You wake up in your small wooden hut, the cold seeping through the walls like a persistent ghost. Even under your straw-filled mattress, the chill presses against your skin. Outside, a pale gray light fights its way through the thick clouds, promising another day swallowed by winter's relentless grip. Your first task is simple in theory, but critical in practice. You must dress yourself to survive the cold. This isn't a matter of fashion. It's a matter of life and death. You are about to master the art of medieval layering, a skill as vital as chopping wood or tending the fire. You begin with your linen shirt. It's thin and sought against your skin, woven from flax fibers, painstakingly harvested during the fleeting warmth of summer. This layer is important because it serves as a barrier that helps wick away moisture. You know from bitter experience that sweating into damp clothes is a death sentence in this season. The chill will seep into your bones, and sickness will soon follow. This linen layer is your medieval version of modern thermal underwear. Light, but functional, keeping your skin dry and comfortable. Next, you pull on your woolen tunic. Wool is the true hero of your winter wardrobe, prized for its ability to trap heat even when wet. The tunic is thick and a bit scratchy against your skin, but its warmth is unmatched. Sheep's wool, shorn in the spring and processed by your family or neighbors, has been turned into dense fabric, capable of insulating you against the biting cold. You've learned not to skimp on this layer, as the difference between a thin wool tunic and a thick one can mean hours of extra comfort or misery. The tunic reaches down to your knees, wrapping your torso and upper legs in a cocoon of warmth. Over the tunic, you wear a heavier cloak. It's bulky and rough, often made from wool, felted tightly, or lined with animal pelts. When you're lucky, you wrap it around your shoulders and fasten it with a brooch, perhaps a simple iron pin or a carved bone clasp. This outer layer fights off the brutal wind that blows through the village, its icy fingers sneaking in through cracks and crevices. The cloak acts like a fortress, holding back the chill and keeping the heat your body produces close to you. Your legs are covered in woolen hose, thick, snug leggings that stretch from your waist down to your ankles. They trap air warmed by your body heat, adding another layer of insulation. Over the hose, you wear leather boots, sometimes lined with fur. These boots have endured countless winter days. They're leather stiff from cold, but still sturdy enough to protect you from the frozen ground and wet snow. The soles are cracked from miles of trudging through muddy paths, but they still shield your feet from frostbite, which you've come to fear as much as hunger or illness. Your hands, always at risk from the cold, are wrapped in thick leather gloves. Some gloves are stuffed with wool or lined with rabbit fur to provide extra warmth. Your fingers move stiffly at first, but as the day warms, you regain some dexterity. Without these gloves, your fingers would quickly become numb, leaving you unable to perform even the simplest tasks: chopping wood, carrying water or handling tools. Your head and ears, vulnerable to frostbite, are covered by a fur-lined hood or a thick woolen hat. The cold wind howls outside, but your ears are protected, and your head retains precious body heat. You've learned that keeping your head warm is one of the easiest and most effective ways to avoid sickness during winter. Every piece of clothing is layered carefully, not tossed on haphazardly. You know that trapping warm air between layers is the key to insulation. Too few layers, and the cold bites through. Too many, and you risk sweating, which will chill you as soon as you stop moving. It's a delicate balance, one honed through bitter experience and stories told by those who came before you. As you step outside, the layers work together like a medieval snowman's armor, protecting you from the cold siege of winter. Your breath rises in soft clouds, mingling with the swirling snowflakes. The crunch of snow beneath your boots sounds loud in the cold silence. Every step is measured, deliberate. You feel the weight of the clothes, but you know it's worth it. The cold is relentless, but you are prepared. You recall how your ancestors learned these skills over generations, trial and error, etched into the fabric of their lives. There was no room for error. Winter could kill swiftly and silently. The layered clothing you wear is a testament to human resilience, ingenuity, and adaptation in the face of harshness. Later in the day, as you work chopping wood or tending livestock, you adjust your layers, loosening the cloak when you sweat, tightening it again when the wind picks up. You are intimately aware of every fabric and fold, the way the wool rubs against your skin, the way the leather creaks with each movement. This clothing is more than protection. It is an extension of yourself, a shield against a world that is frozen and unforgiving. At night, as you prepare to sleep, you add even more layers. You wrap yourself in a heavy wool blanket, sometimes layered with animal pelts if you have them. You curl tightly to preserve body heat, knowing that the outside world will be even colder when you wake. Your layered armor becomes a cocoon, a final defense against the cold that seeks to invade your dreams. And so you live your winter days, wrapped in layers, moving through the frozen landscape like a figure from an ancient story, protected, cautious, but alive. The art of layering is a quiet heroism, a daily ritual that ensures you survive until the thaw. You step back inside your hut, the cold air biting your cheeks as the door closes behind you with a soft thud. Immediately, your eyes are drawn to the hearth, the heart of your home, where a small fire burns low but steady. This fire is your lifeline, your shield against the harsh winter's cruel grip. Without it, you would be nothing but a frozen shadow, lost beneath the snowdrifts outside. But keeping this fire alive through the endless winter nights is no easy task. It requires knowledge, patience, and a careful hand. This is the art of the hearth, and you are its guardian. First, you assess your wood supply. During the warmer months, you or someone in your household carefully gathered and stacked wood, drying it thoroughly to ensure it would burn well. Dry wood is your greatest treasure in winter. Green or wet wood smokes heavily, produces little heat, and can smother your fire. You know to avoid it because smoke fills your small hut, making it hard to breathe and causing your eyes to sting. Instead, you reach for the dry logs stacked near the door, mostly oak and ash, known for their zongkao, steady burn. Lighting the fire is a delicate ritual. You begin by arranging small twigs and dry kindling in a loose pile, building a tiny pyramid that will catch flame easily. Birch bark, prized for its papery texture and flammability, lies ready to ignite. With just a spark, you strike your flint and steel, sending a shower of sparks onto the birch. With careful, gentle breaths, you coax the tiny spark into a flicker, then a flame. If you rush or blow too hard, the flame sputters and dies. If you're too slow, it never catches. This moment demands your full attention. As the flame grows, you add larger sticks, then split logs, watching as the fire blossoms into a warm glow. The crackle and pop of burning wood fill the hut, bringing life and comfort. You adjust the logs carefully, not too close to smother the fire, but close enough to keep it bright. You know that fire breathes too much or too little. Fuel can kill it. Maintaining the fire requires constant vigilance. If you add too little wood, the fire dwindles to cold embers. Failing to provide sufficient warmth, add too much at once, and the flames roar out of control, wasting precious wood and filling your home with smoke. You've learned to read the fire's language, the color of the flames, the way it crackles, the heat it gives off. It's a quiet dialogue, a dance between you and the hearth that keeps the cold at bay. As night falls, you bank the fire to last through the hours when you sleep. Using ashes and unburnt wood, you create a mound that smolders slowly, preserving heat for hours. This technique requires skill. You need to pack the embers carefully without suffocating them. You cover the hearth with an iron lid or a thick stone slab, preventing sparks from escaping and keeping your home safe from fire hazards. The fire is more than warmth. It's where you cook the meager meals that sustain you, boiling broth from bones or roasting salted fish. It's the gathering place for your family, where stories are shared, songs hummed, and the weight of the harsh world outside momentarily forgotten. It lights your evenings, casts dancing shadows on the walls, and breathes life into the long winter nights. You also rely on the fire to dry clothes and boots, dampened by snow and ice. Hung near the hearth, these items slowly dry, ready to protect you again from the unforgiving cold. Without the fire's warmth, damp clothes would freeze against your skin, chilling you further and inviting illness. Sometimes, when the wind howls and the snow piles high outside, you find comfort simply in watching the flames. The fire's glow is a small sun within your home, a reminder that life persists even when the world is frozen and silent. The embers hold a promise that as long as the hearth burns, you endure. The knowledge of firekeeping is passed down from generation to generation, an ancient secret held in the calloused hands of your ancestors. Without it, the winter would be an unending nightmare. But because of it, you face the cold with courage. Wrapped in the warm embrace of your hearth, you settle close to the fire, your stomach reminding you that warmth alone isn't enough. You need sustenance. In the 13th century, the frozen winter shapes not just your clothing or shelter, but your entire diet. Food is scarce, and the luxury of fresh ingredients is a memory from warmer months. What you eat now isn't about pleasure. It's about survival. Every bite is fuel to keep your body moving through the merciless cold. Your food stores are modest, filled with what could be preserved before the frost gripped the land. Root vegetables like turnips, parsnips, and carrots are staples. These hardy plants were harvested late in the season and carefully stored in cool, dark cellars where the temperature stays just above freezing. Here, they can last through months without spoiling. When you peel a turnip or slice a carrot, you appreciate their earthy taste, simple but sustaining. Grains, barley, rye, oats are essential. You remember the long hours spent milling grain into coarse flour during autumn. From this flour, you bake dense, heavy bread, more akin to a hard biscuit than the fluffy loaves of later centuries. This bread is filling and tough, but it provides the carbohydrates your body craves to generate heat. Meat is a precious commodity. Hunting is difficult in winter. Animals are scarce, and deep snow makes tracking them a challenge. Livestock must be sheltered and fed, and their meat rationed carefully. When you do have meat, it's often salted or smoked to preserve it. You slice thin strip of salted pork or dried fish, savoring the rich, salty flavor that cuts through the monotony of root vegetables and bread. Soups and stews are your winter culinary lifeline. You simmer bones and scraps for hours, drawing out every bit of flavor and nutrition into a warm broth. Into this, you add root vegetables and grains, creating a simple but hearty meal. This hot stew warms your hands and stomach alike, its steam filling the chilly air. You understand the importance of preserving food. Smoking, salting, drying, these methods are vital. You and your family worked hard during autumn, hanging meats and fish in smokehouses or salting them in barrels. Fruits such as apples or berries are dried or turned into preserves when possible. Every preserved item is a gift from the past season, a treasure to be rationed carefully. Drinks are mostly weak ale or water. Fresh milk turns sour quickly in the cold, and fresh water sources may freeze over. Ale, brewed in small batches, provides some calories and a warming buzz, but must be consumed in moderation. Too much weakens your resolve, making you vulnerable to the cold outside. Meals are not occasions for celebration. They are practical affairs. The family gathers silently or in soft murmurs, thankful for whatever sustenance the day has provided. The fire crackles nearby, casting flickering shadows on the faces around the table. You chew slowly, mindful of stretching your food as far as possible. Sometimes you find small joys in this frozen feast. The sweetness of a preserved apple slice, the smoky tang of dried fish, the comforting thickness of barley broth, all remind you that life persists even in hardship. Each meal is a small victory, a reassurance that you will endure this winter. Your body depends on this fuel to generate heat, to keep your limbs nimble enough to chop wood or fetch water, to keep your mind alert against the dangers of sickness. Hunger is a constant threat, but careful rationing and preservation give you a fighting chance. As you finish your meal, you feel a moment of gratitude for the food, the fire, the shelter, and the knowledge that you can survive. The frozen feast is a testament to human resilience, to the hard-earned wisdom that transforms meager provisions into the strength needed to outlast the cruelest of winters. Stepping outside your hut, you face a landscape transformed. The fields where crops once grew are now silent, covered in a thick blanket of snow and ice. The frozen earth lies dormant, its life hidden beneath layers of frost. You know this stillness is temporary, but winter's grip seems endless in these long, dark months. Understanding what happens to the land during this frozen season is key to your survival and the cycle of life itself. During the growing season, the fields were alive with activity, plowing, sowing, and tending crops like barley, rye, and wheat. But now, the soil is hard as stone, and the ground is sealed beneath snow. The plants have died back or gone to seed, their life energy stored deep in the earth or in the remnants left behind. These plants are not dead, but resting, waiting for warmth and light to return. Frost penetrates the soil, freezing the water within it and causing the ground to expand and contract. This freeze-thaw cycle breaks up the soil, which actually benefits the fields by aerating the earth and preparing it for spring planting. You might not see it now, but beneath the ice, the earth is working quietly. You remember how the snow itself acts as a protective blanket. It insulates the soil, preventing it from freezing too deeply. This layer of snow keeps the roots of perennial plants safe and preserves moisture for the growing season ahead. It also protects the fields from harsh winter winds that could erode the fragile topsoil. The winter months are a time of rest and preparation for the land, much like for you. You use this time to repair tools and equipment, sharpen your plowshares, and plan for the coming planting season. The fields, although seemingly lifeless, hold promise beneath their icy cover. Animals that once roamed the fields in warmer months are now scarce. Birds migrate to milder regions, or take shelter in wooded areas. Small mammals burrow under the snow, creating tunnels that protect them from predators and cold. You sometimes catch glimpses of these creatures' tracks, tiny signs of life in an otherwise frozen world. You also think about the challenges winter poses to the land. Heavy snow and ice can damage young trees or break branches. Extended cold snaps may delay the thaw and shorten the growing season, threatening your harvest. You rely on the knowledge passed down to choose the right crops, harvest at the right times, and prepare for these inevitable hardships. The frozen fields remind you of the great cycle of nature, a rhythm of growth, rest, and renewal. Winter is a pause, not an end. It's a chance for the earth to regain strength and for you to endure, so that when spring comes, both land and people can thrive once more. As you look out across the snowy expanse, you feel a quiet connection to the land beneath your feet. The frozen fields may appear barren and harsh, but they are full of hidden life and hope. Surviving winter means trusting in this cycle and preparing for the rebirth that lies ahead. You step outside once again, eyes scanning the snowy landscape for signs of life. Though the world is frozen and seemingly silent, the winter is far from lifeless. The animals that share this harsh environment have their own ways of enduring the cold, just as you do. Understanding how these creatures survive offers you clues and sometimes companionship in this frozen world. Some animals hibernate, retreating deep underground or into burrows where temperatures remain more stable. You know that badgers and hedgehogs curl into tight balls, lowering their metabolism to conserve energy. Their bodies slow down as they rest through the coldest months, waking only when the days begin to lengthen and warmth returns. This instinctive rest is a survival strategy that you envy, though you cannot afford the luxury yourself. Other creatures migrate. Birds such as swans, geese, and many songbirds take flight toward warmer lands before the snow falls. You watch as flocks leave in tight formation, their wings beating steadily against the cold air. This migration is a seasonal exodus, a journey taken to find food and survival. You imagine their long flight and the challenges they face, knowing that, unlike them, you must endure the winter in place. Some animals remain active throughout winter, adapting to the cold in remarkable ways. Deer grow thick coats of fur that trap heat and shed it gradually as spring arrives. Their hooves, hardened by the cold, allow them to traverse icy terrain as they forage for whatever vegetation remains. You often see their tracks near the edge of the woods, a reminder that life continues. Quietly and resiliently, small mammals like rabbits and mice burrow beneath the snow, creating a hidden world of tunnels and chambers. These snow burrows protect them from predators and harsh weather, providing insulation against freezing temperatures. You sometimes find evidence of these tunnels near your hut, a small hole in the snow, a line of tiny footprints, signs of creatures eking out their existence. Predators like foxes and owls remain vigilant through the winter. Foxes follow the tracks of smaller animals under the snow, using keen senses to hunt even in darkness and cold. Owls glide silently through the night, their feathers muffling sound as they seek prey. You respect these hunters, understanding that the balance of life depends on their survival as well. You also rely on some animals for your own survival. Chickens, kept close to the hut, provide eggs, though fewer in winter, and warmth with their bodies. Pigs, goats, or sheep sheltered in barns offer meat, milk, or wool, resources you cherish deeply. The animal's survival depends on your care, and your survival depends on theirs. It's a delicate dance of dependency. The changing behavior of animals teaches you about the rhythms of winter. Their adaptations are stories of resilience, lessons written in fur, feathers, and tracks in the snow. You watch, learn, and sometimes imitate, finding comfort in their presence. As you prepare for another cold night, you feel less alone in this frozen world. The animals are your silent companions, each living creature a small testament to life's persistence amid winter's harshness. Together, you endure. Section 13. Medicine and Winter Ailments. Staying healthy. When the cold bites, winter brings more than cold. It brings sickness. Your body is vulnerable in these months, and without modern medicine, you rely on simple remedies and the knowledge passed down through generations. Frostbite is a constant threat. You watch your fingers, toes, ears, and nose for signs of numbness or discoloration. To prevent it, you keep your hands and feet dry and warm, frequently checking for early warning signs. If frostbite sets in, the options are limited. Warm water soaks, gentle massage, and keeping the affected areas wrapped in dry cloths. Prevention is truly the best medicine here. Respiratory illnesses, like coughs and colds, run rampant. The smoke-filled huts can aggravate breathing, but you can't escape the hearth's warmth. Herbal remedies become your medicine chest. You brew teas from sage, thyme, or elderflower, believed to soothe coughs and clear congestion. Honey, if you have it, is precious for calming sore throats. You battle scurvy by eating preserved greens or drinking broth made from animal bones rich in nutrients. Though this disease is hard to avoid in long winters, without fresh vegetables, your body fights as best it can, sustained by broth and the occasional bit of preserved food. Broken bones, cuts, and wounds require basic care. You clean them with boiled water, if you can, and bind them with strips of linen. You hope for a natural healing, aided by prayers and the blessing of local healers or clergy. Rest is crucial. Your body needs time to recover in a season that offers little respite. You sleep deeply, conserving energy, and rely on your community for support. Though the winters are harsh, your knowledge of herbs, careful attention to warmth, and the resilience of your body and spirit give you a fighting chance to survive until spring returns. As the winter deepens, the nights grow longer, stretching their shadows across your world. Darkness dominates your days, turning noon into twilight and dawn into a pale promise that often fails to arrive. This is the long night, the time when the sun barely climbs above the horizon and the world is cloaked in cold. Dim light, you live your life under this muted sky, and it shapes everything you do, from your work to your thoughts and dreams. You wake in the dark before the first weak light of morning breaks through the tiny window of your hut. The fire you banked last night glows faintly, casting dancing shadows on rough wooden walls. Without electricity or artificial light, your days are dictated by the sun's rhythm, short and fragile. You must plan your tasks carefully to make the most of the scarce daylight. Chopping wood, tending animals, fetching water, all happen in bursts between fading light and encroaching night. The darkness affects more than just your schedule. It weighs on your spirit. Long winter nights can feel endless, breeding a deep sense of isolation and weariness. The cold outside seems to seep into your mind, making you crave warmth and light, not only for your body, but for your soul. You remind yourself to keep busy, to focus on small tasks or stories by the fire, lest your thoughts drift into despair. Sleep, too, is shaped by the long night. You notice how your body adjusts to this strange rhythm. You sleep more deeply and longer when the darkness stretches on, conserving energy for the cold days ahead. But sometimes the long nights bring restless dreams, visions shaped by the flickering firelight and the creaking sounds of your hut settling in the cold. You dream of spring's warmth, of green fields and fresh food, or sometimes of danger, wolves howling outside, or hunger gnawing at your belly. The darkness also holds a certain mystery. The flickering firelight brings shadows that seem to move and dance, filling the corners of your hut with ghostly shapes. Stories told around the hearth speak of spirits, of ancestors watching over you, and of the unseen forces that dwell in the night. You listen closely, respecting these tales, understanding that in winter the world feels closer to the unseen. You find comfort in the small sources of light. You control a candle, a tallow lamp, the hearth fire. These lights are precious, fragile beacons in the dark. You guard them carefully, knowing that once extinguished, darkness reigns completely. The light chases away fear and cold, offering a sense of safety and warmth. During the day, the dim light softens the edges of the world. Snow-covered fields and frost-laden trees appear muted and still, as if frozen in a dream. The long shadows stretch across the land, altering your sense of time and space. It's easy to feel lost or disoriented, but you ground yourself by routine and memory. You also learn to appreciate the stars, which shine brighter and longer in the clear winter skies. On nights when clouds part, you look up to find constellations guiding you. Ancient patterns that have helped travelers and farmers for centuries. The cold night air sharpens the stars' brilliance, offering a small glimpse of light in the vast darkness. The long night tests your resilience and spirit. It challenges you to find light within yourself, to hold on to hope. When the world seems swallowed by shadow, you discover that endurance is not just physical, but mental and emotional. A quiet strength that carries you through the darkest days as you lay down to sleep. Wrapped in your layered blankets, you let the fire's warmth soothe you. You tell yourself that the long night is part of the cycle, a necessary passage before the return of light. With that thought, you close your eyes, drifting into dreams where spring waits patiently beyond the frozen horizon. Winter in the 13th century isn't just a season. It's a relentless opponent that tests every part of your life. To survive, you must rely on your tools, simple, sturdy, and often handmade, each designed to help you fight against the cold, secure food, and maintain your shelter. These are your weapons against winter's wrath, and knowing how to use and care for them is as crucial as knowing how to build your fire or prepare your food. First among these tools is your axe. It's an extension of your arm, sharp and reliable, used to fell trees, chop firewood, and even carve notches in ice to access water. The axe's blade must be kept razor sharp. A dull axe wastes precious energy and risks accidents. You spend time each day carefully sharpening the blade on a whetstone, feeling the satisfaction as it bites cleanly into wood. A good handle made of ash or hickory absorbs shock and fits comfortably in your hands, allowing you to work for hours without excessive fatigue. Next, you rely on your knife, a smaller but equally essential tool. Its uses are countless: preparing food, carving wooden utensils, making repairs, and even skinning animals. If hunting is successful, your knife must be sturdy, with a blade tough enough to resist bending or breaking. Its handle is often wrapped in leather or wood to provide grip, even when your hands are cold or wet. Keeping it sharp and clean is a daily task, one that ensures your safety and efficiency. Your shovel and spade serve you well in winter. 2. Clearing snow from around your home or livestock shelters is critical to prevent drafts and protect animals. You use the shovel to dig paths through snowdrifts, ensuring access to wells or stored food. Sometimes you must break through frozen ground or ice to reach water, and your spade is a vital tool for this harsh task. Other woodworking tools, like saws, adzes, and chisels, come into play when repairing your home or crafting necessary items. You fix broken doors, mend wooden fences, and build storage containers, all vital to maintaining your winter shelter and preserving food. These tools require careful maintenance. Rust is a constant enemy in damp, cold conditions. After each use, you clean, dry, and oil them to prevent corrosion. Your fire-starting tools are perhaps the most sacred. Flint and steel, along with dry tinder, like birch bark or dry grasses, must be kept ready at a moment's notice. A fire can mean the difference between life and death, so you store these materials carefully, protecting them from moisture and damage. Sometimes you carry a small bundle of prepared tinder with you when venturing outside, just in case you need to relight your hearth or signal for help. Water containers and cooking pots, often made of wood, clay, or iron, are essential in daily life. Your cooking pot hangs above the fire, simmering broth or heating water for washing. Wooden buckets and barrels store water and foodstuffs, while clay pots can keep food fresh or hold grains safe from rodents. These containers must be handled with care, especially in freezing temperatures, when clay can crack and wood can warp. Clothing and textile tools, needles, awls, and spinning wheels also play a vital role. You mend torn garments, sew patches, and spin wool into yarn for warmth. Without these skills and tools, your clothes would quickly wear out, leaving you exposed to the cold. You treasure these tools as much as your axes and knives, for they protect your body from winter's bite. Each tool carries the marks of use: scratches on the axe handle, chips in the blade, worn grips. These are signs of hard work and resilience. They tell a story of daily struggle and survival, a testament to human ingenuity and endurance. You also understand the importance of community in sharing tools and skills. Neighbors exchange knives, help repair fences, or trade firewood. This mutual aid strengthens everyone's chances against winter's hardships. Alone, your tools are important. Together with your community, they become a lifeline as you prepare for another day of chopping wood, tending animals, or maintaining your shelter. You gather your tools with care. They are more than objects. They are extensions of your will to survive, your connection to the world, and your hope for spring. As you lie beneath your thick blankets, feeling the fire's last warmth fade, your thoughts drift beyond the frozen walls of your hut. Winter is a test of endurance, a season of hardship and scarcity. But it is not the end. Deep within you burns the promise of spring, a time of renewal, growth, and hope. Holding on to this promise is as vital as the food you eat or the fire you keep burning. The promise of spring is a quiet force, whispered in the shifting winds and the slow lengthening of days. You notice subtle signs: the faint thaw in the midday sun, the slow retreat of snow from the south-facing slopes, or the first tentative shoots pushing through frozen soil. These signs remind you that winter, harsh and relentless as it may be, is temporary. This hope shapes your every action when chopping wood. You gather more than you need, preparing for the final stretch. When tending your animals, you care for them with the knowledge that soon They will graze again in open fields. When repairing your home, you build not just for survival, but for comfort. In the coming warmth, you also carry the promise of spring in your heart and mind. Stories told by elders speak of the cycle of seasons, of the earth's renewal after winter's rest. These stories are lifelines passed down through generations, anchoring you to a greater rhythm beyond your individual struggle. They remind you that you are part of a larger story, one that continues despite the cold and darkness. In moments of quiet, you imagine the spring rain soaking into thawed earth, the burst of green from dormant seeds, and the return of birdsong to the morning air. You picture fields alive with crops, the smell of fresh earth, and the taste of new food. This vision sustains you, a beacon that guides you through the bleakest days. You also find strength in community. Neighbors share news of the thaw, exchange stories of survival, and prepare together for planting. This shared hope binds you, offering comfort and encouragement. Even in the harshest winter, you are not alone. The promise of spring shapes your dreams. 2. In sleep, you visit fields of wildflowers, hear the laughter of children playing in warm sun, and feel the soft breeze on your face. These dreams are a refuge, a reminder of what lies ahead and why you endure. When the first real thaw comes, it feels like a rebirth. Rivers swell with melted snow. Earth softens beneath your feet, and the scent of damp soil fills the air. You step outside and feel the sun's warmth without the bite of frost. It is a moment of triumph, proof that you have survived the long night. But spring also brings new challenges: muddy fields to till, seeds to sow, and the labor of renewal. You face these tasks with weary but determined hands, grateful for the season's return and ready to build on your winter's survival. The cycle continues. Winter's hardship, followed by spring's promise. This rhythm teaches patience, resilience, and hope. You carry these lessons forward, knowing that no matter how harsh the winter, the promise of spring endures. As you settle in for your last cold night before the thaw, you whisper a quiet thanks for the fire that warmed you, the food that sustained you, the tools that aided you, and the hope that carried you. You close your eyes, ready to rest, ready to face whatever comes next.